Busy today, Jordan? How many shows? Man's a hustler. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NFL Deeper Dive Showdown Edition, presented, of course, by PrizePicks. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first, I'm Dave Lockran on the Twitters at Lafay_D. Hit your boy up, LOUGHY_D. I don't care. We could talk football, banter, movies, shows, tell me I suck, whatever it is. That's cool. I'm sure my co-host feels the same way. This man's sharp, loves talking football as much as I do, and we're going to break it all down for the next hour. Matt Savoca at Draftaholic on Twitter. Been doing a ton of work with us, crushing it every year, and especially to kick off this season. Matt, first showdown slate we're doing together, deeper dive, and we got a good one on our hands, brother.
Yes, we do. Yes, thrilled to be here. My first showdown show with Awesemo. Couldn't be happier. And Lamar Jackson is on the slate. What else can we, be excited? So much more to be excited about than just Lamar, but this is a great one to get the season started. First Monday Night Football.
Yeah. And I tell you what, we were on a call today discussing our NFL stuff, and Jake Hari, who wins a lot in DFS, also does a ton of the NHL stuff and behind the scenes stuff. I may have heard him wrong, but I don't think I did. And it's not even crazy if this is the case. I think he said that every showdown slate that the Ravens have been on with Lamar Jackson as a starter, he has finished as the optimal captain. I mean, I know he's amazing, but that is absurd to think of the ceiling this guy has, and really the floor as well, Matt, to finish as the optimal captain pretty much, well, from what I heard, every time he's been on the slate.
And it's really not surprising because especially on a platform like DraftKings, where you're getting bonuses for rushing and bonuses for huge passing games, Lamar Jackson is just a slate breaker. And in a lot of these game scripts, he's game script dependent, I should say. If they're down, he's passing to get them back in the game. And if they're up, he's running option plays, taking wide open lanes. And, he can change the rushing yardage total in one play. So I don't know how you get away from him unless you're being super contrarian. And, we can start talking about showdown lineup strategy because we absolutely want one of these quarterbacks in there. And if you just study the game log of Derek Carr, you have a pretty good idea of the range of outcomes you're getting from him tonight. Whereas Lamar Jackson, the ceiling is basically unlimited, 40 points or higher.
Your background's looking good with that backlighting in there behind the books.
Yeah, we're getting it going, right? It's got a little,
I like it.
Little pro vibe. Thank you.
I like it, man. It's like Adam Schefter-esque,
Yeah. I need a signed helmet by somebody influential.
Except you know more about football than Adam Schefter. Is that wrong to say?
Oh, I would never say such a thing. Although when they were like, Saquon's going to be used sparingly, when they tweeted that out, I was like, oh, Saquon's getting 40 touches yesterday.
Right,
that's how we feel.
Right. Roundabout way of saying, yeah, maybe a little bit more. Anyway, we're happy to talk football. We're also very thrilled to have you guys with us. As always, you know that. You're the lifeblood of all of this shit. And we're almost at 100 likes already. I haven't even said a thing. So appreciate all of you early adopters to the like button. If we could get over 100 just out of the gate, that would be fantastic. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. We're at 58,100 and a little bit more than that. 60,000. I think it's very doable. I think we can make that happen sooner than later. I'm thinking probably by week 3. Thanks to all you guys for supporting us as always. Much love. Appreciate you. Let's dive into this, Matt. So first, what's up to everybody in chat? Seeing all the love you're showing us. We love it. Matt,
thanks,
Showdown
guys.
strategy. I start every show out with this because Showdown strategy, normally you'd be like, well, why does he bring this up every show? Because every game and every slate and every projected game script is different. Every total is different. Every spread is different. But specifically, we would be remiss to not really drill down on it when it comes to a Lamar Jackson slate. And you just alluded to that. When it comes to Lamar Jackson, you just said, you'd be crazy not to captain him. He's extremely expensive. So when it comes to strategy, and we're going to build a lineup for a large field tournament later, so we'll have some fun at the end of the show and give you our top bets as well. When it comes to large fields, trying to win them, or even some of these large field single entry contests with 30, 40, 50, $60,000 prize pools, what are you doing on a Jackson slate from a strategy standpoint? And without getting into super specifics, how are you different? And what are you doing to be different on those big ones?
Well, I'm putting him in the captain spot. I'm usually running it back with someone who I believe on the other side can have the biggest game, assuming Lamar Jackson has his ceiling game. Sometimes that one player really rises to the top in probability, but often it's 2 players. So I might take 2. And I often use the running back with Lamar Jackson. And usually you say quarterback, running back doesn't have a negative correlation. With rushing quarterbacks, that correlation tends to shift. And we actually saw a positive correlation, actually extremely positive correlation between J.K. Dobbins, his starting running back last year. Well, hope he returns soon in 2022, and Lamar Jackson. So I think we could see Tyson Williams take advantage of the rushing lanes that Lamar Jackson creates for his running back. And so you could use him there as well. Now, Tyson, I was surprised to see how high his salary was, especially on FanDuel. So you're going to have to differentiate. You're going to have to differentiate another way. I think Latavius Murray is going to get some run here. We noticed that both Le'Veon Bell and Devonta Freeman were not elevated from the practice squad, which means that they're only going with a few running backs, and they're focusing much more on the defensive back side of things. And we should talk about that at some point. But from a roster construction standpoint, we're just looking for ceiling plays at the very bottom in terms of salary. And, there are some pretty obvious choices, but look, don't forget about slot receivers who could theoretically rack up a big PPR game. Someone like a Hunter Renfrow, who has a decent projection, but if he catches a touchdown, now you're talking about a 3x value play on his salary. So that's a basic overview of how I'm trying to work around the Lamar salary.
No doubt. And I'll tell you this much. We're going to dive into it. It's not fun, right? It's not fun, but you can get Lamar captain with Waller and Derek Carr into lineups. It's doable. There's going to be some ugly shit down there at the bottom, but it is doable. So I'm actually looking forward to building a lineup, Matt, because we're captaining Lamar Jackson, and then it's just we got to figure it out from there.
Yep, it's a free for all from there.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's talk about Baltimore. But first, if you guys haven't checked out PrizePicks yet, and PrizePicks is picking up steam, especially in football season. Not a lot of these sites work. You hear about them and then they kind of disappear. PrizePicks just picking up massive steam. We get a lot of questions on it, just not typical for a lot of these things, but I love seeing it. And I love being partnered with them here for the deeper dive. If you're not sure what they are, it's daily player prop based contests. And the best way to do this, right, to get started is use the deposit bonus Awesemo, because you will get an instant deposit match of up to $100 when you do. Win-win right there. Awesome platform, looks good. The UI looks really good. Just the overall concept is sick too. You're just betting overs or unders. You're picking overs or unders. All of your DFS research applies entirely to this when you think about it. Like your projections that you're using, right? We have the player prop tool at Awesemo. We have the player projections, right? The projected stats. You can use all of that for PrizePicks. Get your edge that exact way. It's huge. All you have to do is pick 2, 3, 4, 5 players available on the board to go over or under the projected scores. If you pick all 5 of them right, you can net up to 10x your entry fee, and you can do cross sport stuff. So maybe you're an MLB person, maybe even like esports. You can throw all of them into the same thing, or you can just do 5 straight NFL picks. But download the app. in the App Store or the Google Play Store. Use the promo code Awesemo, get an instant deposit match up to $100, and use our projections, use our stuff if you're a premium member as well. Matt, I'll go first because I find this interesting that we're just coming in on different sides of this one. I went under 62.5 rushing yards on Tyson Williams just because it's such an unknown. And I went over 23.5 on Latavius Murray. You're on a different page than me for this one.
Well, I'm just going by the numbers, and I was a little surprised to see it, but the Awesemo projections have Tyson Williams projected for over 25% over his prop value in rushing yards.
I don't feel good about that. I don't feel good about my pick now.
Well, I understand where you're coming from too. This is a player who we were joking about. I'm not sure I heard his name before last week.
Right. The guy with the apostrophe.
Yeah. Now we're talking about a player who might see 80% of the backfield snaps in one of the most rush efficient offenses in the last half decade. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got over his prop there of 62.5, but at the same time, it feels really risky from a gut standpoint. I know exactly where you're coming from. And hey, I wanted to add one thing about PrizePicks, which is really cool. If you are not fully in on a player in DFS, but they do excel at one area of the game, like rushing, receiving, and you want to make money on that player, I can think of a player like Damian Harris, who rushes for almost 100 yards, but gives you 10 fantasy points all the time. Do you really want that kind of player in DFS? No. Why don't you bet on his prop on a platform like PrizePicks? So there's our little Tyson Williams things and a little bit more on there.
I like it. So yeah, you might short him over on DraftKings or something, but you can take the over on the rushing prop and not have to worry about touchdowns or upside in the PPR spots. I like it. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, let's do it. And hey, thank you. Well, I shouldn't thank you. I should say welcome to Team Awesemo, Jamie Moore. Glad to have you. That badge looks sexy on you. All right, Matt, let's talk about Baltimore first. We got the Ravens, and you have them at 3.5-point favorites. It was 4 earlier in the day, moving a little bit, but not really significant from 4 to 3.5, right? If we move through 3, we'd be having a different conversation. 27-point implied total. I got a stat to kick this off. Probably doesn't mean anything, but I found it interesting. The last 5 home openers for the Ravens, they're 5-0 with a point differential of 177 to 26.
Okay, so they come to play.
Yeah. That's a crazy differential, even if it means nothing. All right, so we'll start it off with the backfield. It's a mess. They lost Dobbins, they lost Edwards, they lost even Justice Hill, who probably would have got a decent amount of work after in the event that he was there and Edwards wasn't. We'll talk about Marcus Peters once we get to the Raiders, but Tyson Williams is expected to start. Latavius Murray will be active, and so will Trenton Cannon. Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman are not expected to be active. I don't even know if they were promoted from the practice squad. So
they were not.
They weren't. So let's break it down. Tyson Williams and Latavius Murray, who has actually been pretty effective when given the opportunity, running behind a good offensive line. And now you have a dual threat quarterback to open up a lot of lanes for you.
Yeah, and I think Latavius Murray is going to play tonight, but it's one of those situations where he's just getting the ball and told to run fast in a straight line, which he can do. As you said, he was productive in with the Saints last season. When Kamara went down, he had some RB1 games. Now, we don't expect him to get a huge amount of the touch share, but that's where we're looking at Tyson Williams as this possible value play, because if he's going to get a large majority of the backfield touches with Lamar Jackson, and we've already talked about at the opening of the show, the ceiling that is available for Lamar Jackson in this game against a Las Vegas defense that does not scare anybody, then you have to look at the starting running back. And that's why I think the projections for a player like Williams on their rushing yards look very, very high, because we've just seen running backs have huge success, really no matter who they are in this Ravens offense.
Yeah. I don't even know how to pronounce the name. Palacia says, don't share full lineups. I don't think the show should make lineups either, for what it's worth. We're not I mean, you can do whatever you want with these lineups, but we're making them as more of an exercise in what builds look like and how you can make lineups. It's not, no one's trying. I mean, first of all, it's Showdown. You're going to have 1,000 dupes anyway in many cases. But yeah, well, not that many. It's not NBA, but it's an exercise.
Well, did you see the Thursday Millionaire on FanDuel? I think it ended up with the winners getting $1,000.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. But yesterday, I don't know. I don't think Alex won it, but he was solo first and second in the fourth quarter. Awesome. solo first and second at one point. Would have been amazing if he won that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. You'll see in the Hall of Fame segment, one of our guys took down 100K on DraftKings and on FanDuel. He's just a machine. But yeah, so what type of, how open are you? And the price points make this tough. Tyson Williams is not cheap. And then even on DraftKings, him and Latavius Murray's not exactly dirt cheap either. I mean, he should probably be 4,200 in a spot like this, given the unknown. He'd probably be super popular, but Tyson Williams is 6,800. Latavius Murray, 62. Are you open to the idea of playing him in the same lineup together, given that Lamar's probably going to be at captain?
I don't feel the need to get there. That's a whole lot of backfield touches. And if you think about it, especially in a tournament, when you roster a player, you are saying essentially, I believe that player has the possibility of hitting their ceiling. And so I don't ever want a situation where if one player hits their ceiling, I don't really see a realistic chance for another player to hit their ceiling. And do we really see a high probability of 6 backfield touchdowns where Lamar Jackson gets 2, Tyson Williams gets 2, and Latavius Murray plunges in for 2? I mean, I guess it's possible, but I think it's really low probability.
I agree with you. I really do. But what about the notion that in a bunch of these lineups, you go Latavius Murray over Tyson Williams?
Oh, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're trying to get the trio of Derek Carr, Darren Waller, and Lamar Jackson fit into your lineup. It's just something you're going to have a low probability play. I probably like these wide receivers, the ones that we heard of before last week. And, I'm not opposed to going with Latavius Murray, but these are just a lot of moving parts on an offense that we're saying is going to succeed. I'm not sure I'm going to be overweight compared to the field.
Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking is that we could see a massive ownership gap between the two because they're similarly priced. Latavius Murray probably should be cheaper, like we said, but the overall assumption right now is that Tyson Williams is the starting back. Starting back can mean a lot of things, Matt, right? Starting back can mean like you get the first series and then these guys both have 14 carries on the day.
Right. It can mean nothing.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case. Maybe Tyson Williams is, because we don't know. We have no idea. I don't know if Harbaugh knows after all of the stuff that he's been through with this backfield. But starting back to me doesn't really mean much, especially when the Ravens are notorious for operating out of committees in the backfield. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we might be just spending a lot of time on the wrong player in the Ravens backfield. That's because Lamar Jackson has such a high probability of succeeding here.
Absolutely.
But we haven't even talked about the poor quality of the Las Vegas defense last year. I was looking at some of the metrics I looked at for defense over the last 10 weeks of the season. If you look at defensive series success rate, their ability to stop a team in 4 downs, whether they get a first down or touchdown, the only team worse than the Vegas Raiders was the Detroit Lions. We're talking about an epically bad secondary over the course of last season. And at the very least, you got to say they spent, after their offensive line pick in the first round, they spent 5 straight defensive picks. But I don't see a huge adjustment, a huge change from that bottom dwelling defense right off the bat.
I was going to say, at least not early on, right? Yeah. I mean, exactly. the Lions made a complete overhaul of their defense, and maybe they gel at some point in the year, but yesterday was not good. And I think you could see a lot of that. It was interesting, though. The Raiders allowed some of the fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks last year. And since that can be a super misleading stat, if you go out and you face a bunch of statues all season long, I looked it up and they faced Josh Allen. I think they faced Kyler Murray. They faced Cam Newton. And I said, that's kind of strange. And they actually faced some good running quarterbacks, but Lamar Jackson's just a tier above everybody else that I don't care.
Yeah. And I was going back through the game logs for both teams before the show. And I noticed that when you look at Baltimore's game logs, when they faced bottom 5 defenses, they absolutely destroyed them. They crushed Cincinnati. They put up over 42 points on Cleveland. When they get in these situations where they play bad defenses, they suddenly come alive offensively. They don't mind playing a low-scoring defensive battle, but I was just really surprised to see that there's the log. 38 points against Cincinnati, 40 points against Jacksonville, 47 against Cleveland, 34 against Dallas. So when they play poor defenses, they've eaten them up in the past.
Yeah, it's very nice to see. And the one thing I'll say, Lamar Jackson scores a lot, but not as much as you'd think as a rusher. And when he does, a lot of times it's from outside the red zone. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins combined for 20 goal line carries last year. So I don't look at this and say, well, you know what? He's the Cam Newton on the goal line. Not necessarily. There are going to be opportunities if they get down there for either Latavius Murray, who would be a pretty decent goal line back in this situation, or Tyson Williams to get it done. So we already know how we feel about Jackson. I'll just spend a second here, Matt, and ask you, because we've said as much that needs to be said, and we haven't said much because you captain him. He is one of the few quarterbacks that can throw for 250 and rush for 100, right? Like that's just what he does. I'm all about being different in these large field tournaments, but getting cute to the point of being stupid is kind of a concern here when it comes to Lamar.
Well, here's the issue we run into. If you run our Awesemo projections, especially on DraftKings, and you set the limit to how low a projection you can include a player, so you don't have any players who are currently projected for 1 to 3 points, you got to have above that. If you put Lamar into captain, and then you put Derek Carr and Darren Waller, you lock them on, I currently only see 6 combinations of lineups available to you.
A lot of dupes.
So that's a lot of duplicates that you're looking at, or you're really going to the bottom of the barrel. So
yeah, agreed. And maybe the play there is to not go Waller, which is scary because he's a legitimate wide receiver. He was top 10 in PPR among all skill players last season, including running backs. That's how good he is. Towards the top in receptions, in targets, second in red zone targets behind Devontae Adams, double-digit touchdowns. The guy is freakishly good, and it's his birthday, Matt. You got that narrative going on. Oof.
Pay Darren Waller on his birthday. You heard it here first, folks.
Don't play guys on birthday narratives, please. Yeah, it's maybe that could work going away from him. But again, that's why we'll have that little exercise later. What about the pass catchers for Baltimore? And talk to me about Sammy Watkins. Can he be that desperately needed possession receiver that they haven't had for years?
Hey, they need somebody to step up, and they're still really, really injured at the wide receiver front. Remember, before all of these running backs started to go down in the preseason, it was the wide receiver room that was catching the injury bug for the Ravens, and we're not going to see Rashad Bateman, their first-round pick, for a few weeks here. We are going to see Marquise Brown. He's been back at practice for a while, but we know Sammy Watkins. He absolutely has a 5% chance of a 40-point game where he breaks 2 tackles in the open field, scores twice, and everyone who played him looks like a genius. But I don't see a situation where the offensive philosophy around Baltimore changes such that they're supporting 2 wide receivers or a consistent wide receiver. So in a 1-game slate, sure, we can take Sammy Watkins if he fits into a salary. I think I probably want to do run back options from the Raiders instead of him, but at 5,200 on DraftKings, you could do worse. I would prefer Edwards at 5,600, just honest. Yeah. I mean, I do think Watkins, but
I was going to ask you, it's funny. I know you guys are sick of me hearing or sick of hearing me say this, but it's just so relevant. Greg Roman, in 8 years as a defensive coordinator on 3 different teams, has been bottom 3 in run play or pass play percentage outside of 1 year where he was bottom 6, Matt. Like, I know they talk about passing more to the running backs, where only the Titans attempted more pass to the running backs at a lower clip last year. I get that we hear all of that, but it's hard to believe it until we see it, especially when I'm sorry, I said defensive, you know what I meant, offensive coordinator, especially when he has a very long track record of not doing that. And you don't have Rashad Bateman and you had dealt with a bunch of injuries, like you said. So is there any merit to saying, all right, you know what? God, this is just nuts. But like Tyson Williams is going to be popular. What if I captain Lamar with 2 or 3 receivers and just hope that they open it up today? It's scary, and I know you're against it, but just to break it down a little bit so we can cover all the angles.
Hey, anything's possible here. Yep. I just think that the ceiling for Lamar Jackson is in his rushing value, which means that we want him to not only have a huge amount of rushing yards, but we want him to get rushing touchdowns. Now, he could do both, and they could all go to one or two people. But it's sort of that situation, that thought experiment we did with the whole backfield. Do you see a situation, ask yourself, do you see a situation where when you put Lamar in captain, you say, okay, he has a ceiling game, he rushes for a few and he passes for a few. Who is that person who gets all of that work? Is it possible that two people hit their ceiling on the receiving end? I kind of don't think so. So I think you should narrow it down to one player.
I'm with you. Why are you going with Mark Andrews? He's pretty expensive.
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting? Before that stat about Lamar Jackson being the optimal captain, essentially every time he's on a showdown slate, I was kind of looking at Andrews as that one player where if I put him into the captain slot, then it maybe opens up some more salary. So I don't have to go to the basement salary and, pick a dart throw play. But obviously, Andrews is the number one target on this low pass volume offense. There are only 4 tight ends that are in the opportunity gold zone, which is 25% of team targets, 25% of team air yards. It's Travis Kelce, it's George Kittle, it's Darren Waller, and it's Mark Andrews. He's in rarefied air when you talk about his pass volume in relation to the rest of the team, and he was well above everyone else on his team in end zone and red zone targets last season. That's what we're looking for, especially on a platform like FanDuel, where touchdowns matter even more. I like Mark Andrews a lot today.
Okay. Anything else you want to hit on for Baltimore? We can go to defense. And of course, one of the few kickers who I actually know their name in this league, Matt, Justin Tucker as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for the Baltimore offense. I don't know if Devin Duvernay is really going to contribute offensively. We don't really need to talk about much other.
Yeah, I don't think so. We had questions earlier about someone like Tylan Wallace, 4th round draft pick. He's a rookie as well. They grabbed Rashad Bateman at the end of the 1st and then Wallace in the 4th. But this is just another one of those plays where, he is the dead min. He's literally as cheap as it gets. Is he even going to play?
With Miles Boykin on IR, maybe it's possible that Tylan Wallace, gets elevated up the depth chart. And, I liked his prospect profile, so it's possible. But again, we're really talking low probability plays here.
Is this a slate where you're looking to get any defenses or kickers?
Yeah, I'll play the kickers, especially if it works with the salary. I think there's a possibility where Baltimore just scores so many points that they're kicking field goals and getting touchdowns because they just have so many successful drives. You could also run it back with an Oakland kicker saying that they too stay in the game offensively, but they are not completing drives with touchdowns. So I think both kickers are viable.
All right, let's flip it over to the other side of this one with the Raiders. I should let you know too that the last day to use the promo code DAK, D-A-K, like the quarterback, is today. This is the last day. One single dollar gets you everything in our Awesemo Plus Express Pass, which is on steroids this season. It's amazing. We're even including all of our season-long stuff like the waiver wire tool, the start sit tool, the rest of season projections, and a lot more. But for this, for DFS specifically, I mentioned it on the strategy show this morning. Do it. If you do it today and you get the full week, we have ownership projections, player projections, all of that for the single game and showdown sites across all of these sites, DraftKings, Yahoo, FanDuel. You do it today, you're getting Monday Night Football, you're getting Thursday Night Football, you're getting Sunday Night Football, and I would assume you're getting another Monday Night Football as well. So this would be the perfect time to take advantage of that. You're legitimately getting 4 showdown slates for $1. We have ownership and rankings and the projections too for the tiers contest. We have the lineup builder, just a ton of stuff there for a single dollar. Use the promo code DAK, D-A-K. Go to awesemo.com/promos. But yeah, like even if it was just showdown content and not the season long and everything else we had, for $1, you're getting all the projections and all of that, everything we have for showdown. All of our showdown tools and content were created by the number 1 ranked DFS player out there, Awesemo himself, Alex Baker, and he uses these tools. He's won a ton of money doing it. For $1, you're essentially risking nothing and putting yourself in the driver's seat for at least the next week. So even if you don't like it, I'm pretty sure you will. You're at $1, but check it out. Awesemo.com/promos DAK. All right, on to the other side of this one. We had a super chat earlier. I wanted to save for I wanted to save, Matt, for this. It was Dave Burke. He says, "What's up, fellas?" And thanks, Dave. What's up, fellas? What what are your thoughts on Kenyon Drake vulturing carries and getting in there for a goal line package? Matt, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I think it's really high. I think they don't care who they're using in the backfield. I think Gruden is a notorious coach speaker when it comes to his running backs. And one thing we do know about Josh Jacobs is he doesn't catch passes. So unless you are playing a really contrarian game script lineup, meaning that you think this game goes very differently than Dave and I do, and the public does in general, and that the Raiders not only win this game, but they're controlling the game, then Josh Jacobs is a good play. Otherwise, you're going to see Kenyon Drake mix in, especially on passing down work. So, yeah. And plus, he's got this, I guess he's feeling better from his illness. And usually I hate it when people are on Twitter bashing people who got injured but when Schefter and Rappaport were tweeting that Josh Jacobs was feeling better, I couldn't help but say like, oh, is your tummy wummy feeling better? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure he's doing fine, but there was just a thought.
He's questionable every game. And I mentioned the Matt Gajewski this morning. It's like they didn't even wait till after week 1 to like sustain a fake injury to list him questionable for the next week.
They had to find a reason.
They just jumped right into it. Yeah, I don't know. For all we know, John Gruden gave him mild food poisoning by undercooking his clams or something. I don't know. But
Josh Jacobs flu game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Solid
that's 38
the
rushing
now.
Yards.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The Baltimore defense lost Marcus Pierce, who was one of their best playmakers in the defensive back position.
And no Jimmy Smith tonight either with the ankle.
Well, this is a defensive back room that is 11 players deep. I'm not saying they aren't going to feel the loss of those 2 players, but this is a group of cornerbacks and safeties that can absolutely weather the storm. And while they were only league average in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position, to overall offenses, they were top 10, meaning hardest for offenses in the league last year in adjusted fantasy points allowed, with other really strong defenses around them like Pittsburgh, New England, Washington. So they were in pretty rarefied air in that regard. It's hard to see a situation where everyone on the Raiders succeed, but looking at their game logs, they did play in a ton of shootouts last year.
Their offense is actually good, Matt. It wasn't bad.
Well, when you have a defense like theirs, you find yourself in a lot of shootouts.
Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
It's a little bit like that, where everyone remembers the weird games in the middle of the season for the Raiders. Remember that rainy day where it was 16-6
and they won
against the Browns, and then they didn't show up to Atlanta and they got crushed 43-6. Let's look at the games around those 2 weird ones. Here's their total point totals: 31, 37, 31, 31, 27, 27, 25, 32. I think it's a good day for the over, especially if you believe in the Ravens side of things, because I think the Raiders are going to be forced into a comeback. And last year's game log shows that they can at least try.
There was a stat, and I agree with you. There was a stat last year where it was like the Raiders were the Raiders broke the record for streak of most games with 4 offensive touchdowns, something crazy like that.
Yeah, so it's very possible here. And while we don't think that this offense is going to be very concentrated outside of Darren Waller, it's possible that we see one of those 2 high draft picks from the 2020 draft, Henry Ruggs in the first round and Bryan Edwards in the third, emerge as a clear second option that could start tonight.
Man, I'm kind of excited for this game. We talked about that super chat, but to put a bow on this backfield, what's your sentiment on Jacobs and then on Drake? Because to me, and I'll just be quick here, but I think Kenyon Drake's price point on DraftKings is absurd.
I just see Jacobs as a play that I don't need. Maybe in cash games if he fits in my lineup, but in tournaments, the ceiling upside is just not there. He doesn't catch passes, so on DraftKings he's kind of out. And do I really see a situation where Josh Jacobs is scoring 3 touchdowns, so his 80 yards on the ground is adequate. Again, low probability, possible, but not probable.
Drake right now pulling 26% projected ownership on DraftKings at 7,200. Jacobs 36% at 8,400. You see yourself coming above or below the field on both of them?
Oof. I'm below the field on Jacobs. I'll probably be right there with Drake.
So you're cool with that price point. That price point scares me, Matt.
Just because it's not popular and I can be original in tournaments. I can kind of go against the grain.
The passing game, we already said, like this offense can move the ball downfield. There's no doubt. And I was not a believer in Derek Carr whatsoever last year, but I was willing to, I was willing to reevaluate things. And he was one of those guys where you already talked about some scores, but he threw for 315 or more passing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. And the only one that he didn't, he got hurt in the first quarter. So his touchdown numbers aren't really spectacular, but Derek Carr is going to throw the football. I don't anticipate them being able to run all that well today. Like Darren Waller is in a spot where whether you like this matchup or not, he's going to get fed, whether he converts those into big touchdowns or long receptions or even receptions to begin with, Waller's going to get fed. But then on the outside, you got Ruggs and Edwards, 2 guys that we don't know a ton about. We know that Ruggs was, erroneously drafted as the number 1 overall wide receiver. I think it's fair to say that given what we saw last season, and the Raiders.
I think it may have been a mistake.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, we should say we're still rooting for him. We hope,
of course, sure.
We hope for his success going forward.
I kind of like the Raiders. That everyone dislikes them and they just have a bad rap. I like when they win. So yeah, Ruggs, please don't be the next Darius Hayward-Bay for us. And Brian Edwards is the guy that everyone was comparing to Terrell Owens and Devontae Adams and, Jerry Rice.
This is what gets them into trouble, where John Gruden starts to talk about players with comparisons that are honestly not fair. And, especially because he used to be the Monday Night Football announcers. Every time he starts to talk, let me tell you about this guy. And then suddenly everyone's really hyped up about him. And, the bottom line is Henry Ruggs has breakaway speed.
Yeah.
And in a 1-game slate, that is the type of player who with limited target share could have a huge yardage share and possibly get a long score. That's someone I want to bet on. So in tournaments, I'm certainly looking there. But as you alluded to, Derek Carr is a pretty safe floor bet. And if I'm not on Josh Jacobs in cash games, as I mentioned previously, then I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be looking at Derek Carr as a really, really safe addition to my cash game lineup. Again, if I'm playing both quarterbacks, I'm going to have to figure it out from there. But I still feel very, very safe about Derek Carr, at least getting me 12 to 17 fantasy points. But I do want to say, I think over 25 fantasy points is pretty low probability here. Like we would have to see a strong ceiling game, but at the very least, that 300 yards bonus is very possible for him.
Absolutely. And if Derek Carr has a big game, it probably means that Lamar Jackson is having a decent game as well, because I don't really envision, and listen, I could be wrong. We could both be completely wrong. I don't envision the Raiders throttling them. But even if they do, that's just going to mean Lamar Jackson's going to have to do more on his own. I mean, that's why it's a win-win for Lamar, because no matter what the game script is, he's just going to do big things. But Raymond said in chat, he said it wasn't a mistake drafting Ruggs. Carr just didn't throw to him. Well, you have half of that, right? No, Carr did not throw to him, but
let's add another caveat there, actually.
Go ahead, please.
Ruggs was targeted heavily. The very first game that they played in 2020, they played Carolina. They were using Ruggs all over the field. He got a deep target late in the first half, and he got hurt. And in my opinion, though he came back and played for much of the second half of the season, he was never the same. And for a player that relies so heavily on speed, quickness, and agility, I think if he is fully healthy coming into this season, we could see a repeat where he got a huge amount of the target share and air yard share. I'm not saying he's passing Waller on the totem pole, but I am saying that there is a possibility, as we said a little bit earlier, that he establishes himself as the clear-cut number 2. And if the Raiders are in all these shootouts, you're going to want the number 2 receiver on this team.
I don't think either of you are sitting here saying that Ruggs is bad. That's not what either of us are saying. I mean, the jury is completely still out on Henry Ruggs. And was he used improperly? It's possible. I remember playing him on one showdown slate where he just ran wind sprints all game. That was it. Wasn't targeted till the 4th, didn't catch. Brutal. But that's what you get with him. Now, here's the you called it a caveat, but I'll consider a silver lining here as well. Coach speak is not all that valuable oftentimes, but there has been a lot of talk from the Raiders, from Gruden, that they want to move Ruggs around more and not just have him as this outside guy that's running, 30 yards, 40 yards downfield on every snap. Because when you have someone that's quick like this, that can rack up yards after the catch, that can create some decent separation off the line of scrimmage, you want to use him wherever you can. And Matt, in my opinion, the only way that Ruggs really thrives and that we get any consistency out of him is if he's not just a deep threat who you're hoping that one of his 3 targets goes for a long touchdown.
Yeah. And it would be great to see that in the Raiders game plan. And I do think we're going to see an expanded route tree for Ruggs, but does that translate to a bunch of fantasy points tonight? That's a little bit tougher. This is a team, again, we talked about some of their losses on the defensive side of the ball, but they grade out very, very highly, top 10 in the league in defensive series success rate against the pass and are above average overall. So again, one thing you might want to think about is the type of contest you're playing. You need to think about the more people you're playing, the more contrarian of a game script I want to create lineups around. So we are talking a lot about the most probable outcomes. So if you're playing a ton of people, you're going to have to say, okay, this low probability outcome has occurred for some players. I like to bet on speedsters like Henry Ruggs, again, because they can break open one play and change the fantasy scoring, become a value play in one catch.
Nicely put, sir. And in chat, I forget who, I can't find it, but he said Ruggs had a 17.5 or 17.7 yards per reception last year. It was just all deep balls. And you're correct. I actually remember looking this up before. Almost 35% of his targets were 20 plus yards downfield. That might sound great until you consider that, if they're not connecting on those, you have no real PPR value. So it's hit or miss, but that makes him interesting on a 1-game slate, Matt. And I think we can end on that when it comes to Ruggs. That always is going to make him interesting because he's an unknown.
Yeah. And if we're not doing Ruggs, that means we're going to Bryan Edwards. And no matter what the coaches have said, I think he's a much lower probability play. I guess we should talk about Hunter Renfrow. The possibility that he just racks up a bunch of catches underneath because they're doubling Darren Waller and they have enough coverage on the outside to stop Ruggs. But that's really as deep as I'm going. Maybe the Willie Snead revenge game turns into something if you're in a huge GPP. But again, these are the lowest probability plays. I do want to say, though, something that I've noticed really interesting. If you put Lamar Jackson in the captain spot and you're willing to really have a punt play in DraftKings, like 26, really 3K or lower, you can actually fit Lamar Jackson at captain, Waller, Carr, Ruggs, and then 2. You can even Renfrow fits in a theoretical build there. So that's a lot of theoretical upside from both teams. I feel like you're capturing a lot there, and then just change out the two versus 2
with who at captain?
With Lamar captain.
Okay, so go read that through one more time. I missed the last one you had. Lamar at captain. You're saying you can still get Derek Carr.
Yep, Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Henry Ruggs, and then you're going to have to make big concessions if you use Renfrow. But I feel like that's capturing a huge amount. You can trade out Ruggs for Edwards. That changes things a little bit, but I think that's a really solid core. And especially if you're building out for floor, like in cash games, I don't think you want to. Certainly Jackson, Carr, Waller, figure it out from there.
Gotcha. Okay. Last thing on the Ravens secondary here, because they are really beat up, right? They are really beat up. They don't have, how many of their would-be starting corners are out? All of them?
At least 2. Yeah. look, we're saying it's not insignificant because of the amount of people that they have, but it's really possible. I was talking to a good friend today, and he's from the Baltimore area. He's a big Ravens fan, and he says that they get nervous with Marcus Peters because he's a constant gambler, which is a reputation, but he gambles pretty effectively, which makes him one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So it is true that they have, I'm seeing 7 active defensive backs, and they have some real playmakers up front. Oh, I guess if Jimmy Smith is inactive, they have 6.
Yeah,
so they certainly have the personnel.
Who are their starting corners tonight?
I believe they'll have Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah.
Tavon Young.
Okay, so I knew Humphrey. I honestly didn't even know Young was going to be. No, I had no idea that he was going to be a starter. So, but it speaks to what you're saying, what we're all saying. I mean, yeah, it could be. Could this shoot out?
Oh, absolutely could. I mean, we're talking about 2 teams that, one in the Ravens that consistently put up points on bad defenses, which we identified the Raiders as one of them. And the Raiders, who, even though their record didn't show it, they were competitive in a lot of shootouts last year.
Yeah, I hit the over in this game a little earlier just because with that secondary just depleted, and with how good Lamar is, and we talked about it, with how good this Raiders offense can be, I wouldn't be surprised to see like a 30-24 game or something like that. Wouldn't shock me at all. And hey, thanks as always for the super chat, Anthony Davis. He says, viable to fade. Dude, you're phrasing this that weird way again, man. Viable. Do you mean to fade Lamar Jackson and Carr in the same lineups? Like, are you saying, is it viable to fade both of them and go only pass catchers and running backs? Or is it viable to fade one and not have to play 2 of them together? If you're saying, is it viable to fade one and not play 2 together? I suppose so. Definitely, you're not fading Lamar. You just don't.
Yeah.
Even Derek Carr, I feel you're going to have to make sacrifices and do things differently. But I just feel like the way this game sets up is that you're probably going to want Derek Carr and Lamar Jackson in most lineups.
Yeah, you probably, especially in all cash games, just start there, figure it out. Maybe if you feel like you know something that the public doesn't know, then maybe you're fading Darren Waller, but I don't see how you go without both quarterbacks in any kind of cash game lineup. And even for tournaments, we're trying to find the optimal lineup. We're trying to get first place and be original, yes, but we're not trying to be so crazy that we score no points. And it's very rare that the optimal lineup doesn't have at least one quarterback. So you're really putting yourself in a small pool of uniqueness, but that uniqueness tends to trend towards 0. So enjoy.
Yeah. And thanks as always for the support, man. All right. I have a big ask. It's probably not achievable, and I may have bit off more than I could chew, but we've got 1,700 people watching right now, only 270 likes. So the ratio there is kind of struggling. That's what, 15.9%. Crazy ask. Can you take 1 second and hit us to 500? Just shoot this through the roof. Can we get to 500? That would be phenomenal. Just double this like total within the next minute, and I will forever love you. I already do, but you know how it works. That would be fantastic. I mean, if we could, I'm just going to sit here and watch for a second, man. That's good. That's a good show, right? Just sit and watch it. I'm kidding. I won't do that to you. I won't do that to you guys, but it would be appreciated, and it doesn't go unnoticed. We're about to hit it. We're already at 4:30 already. I mean, it's coming. It's coming. Just sit back and watch them pour in. Best viewers in town. All right.
Love them.
They are best in town. And I'm not just pandering. I'm no politician. Anything else for Oakland?
Yeah, I do want to say that Marlon Humphrey is the most important cornerback for the Baltimore Ravens. He was PFF's 16th graded cornerback last season. He is one of the best cornerbacks and in one of the best defensive systems in the league. Beyond that, it does hurt to lose Jimmy Smith, who was 24th. Marcus Peters was ranked 45th, but they do have players that were ranked 70th and in the 90s. So that is a significant loss outside of Marlon Humphrey. So maybe it's possible that you're looking at the secondary receivers for the Raiders as a possible plus matchup with different personnel in the secondary for the Ravens.
All right, let's build a lineup. Yo, we just broke the like button. It was at 520. Jordan, you saw that? I see Jordan shaking his head. We were at 520. It went down to 460, went back up to like 530 and back down to 470. We broke the like button. That's pretty cool. Accomplishments. See, we keep going. You see this? It's going crazy, but well over 500. You fellas are the greatest. All right. Lineup build, top props, and then we're giving our predictions on this game. Jordan, hit Hall of Fame first. I want everyone to have a chance to get their names up here so we can brag for you whenever we can, because when you win, we win. And I thoroughly enjoy rattling off all these wins from our subs and everything. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, Jordan's putting it up on the screen. It's the Hall of Fame, Awesemo Hall of Fame. All you have to do to get up here and win a free month of Awesemo Plus, Platinum, $99 value. Download the Awesemo avatar at awesemo.com/avatar, right? Use that as your profile thing for your sites that you play on. If you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you can't tie with more than 3 people because we would just go broke. You win an Awesemo Plus Platinum, $99 value, and we'll always shout you out here if you tweet at Awesemo Hall of Fame. You got to tweet your wins at Awesemo HOF. And while you're at it, include Matt in it at Draftaholic and me as well at Lafayette_D, because we like seeing this stuff. So let's do it. Rinpack, this guy killed it. You know Rinpack. He's a contributor here. He does a lot of great work. He's on shows. 100K on DraftKings, and then flip this, Jordan. 100K on FanDuel on the same day. What a way to start off.
What a beast.
It's just crazy, man. Give me some of that. Congrats, though, Rinpack. That's awesome. Our boy Alex Baker, I love seeing this, too. Awesemo, 20K up top. And then Be Great. That's Peter Hanley, the guy who just never doesn't win. 10K right below it. And then that's Stunner down there at 6 with $2,000. And then we go over to the Sunday MLB Grand Slam. Look at that. 2nd, 5th, 18, 35, 48, 6. Peter Hanley, I'm telling you, he practices black magic. He sold his soul to the devil. And in a strange way, I envy him for it. But congrats, guys. And then Rosso, great way to start the season. We have more on the way, fellas. Appreciate the teachings from my guys. Nice 2nd place win there. So close to 1st as well. And then we'll wrap it up with this. Down home 314, 4K. Boom, up top. 1st place with the Awesemo avatar. Kyler Murray at captain. I knew that game was going to pop off. I just had the wrong side. And then last one, Boss Hog Daddy Dog. I feel weird and uncomfortable saying that, but hey, you know what? That's all right.
Let it roll off the tongue.
Yeah, right. No Awesemo avatar, but still, within 1 week of joining Awesemo officially, Boss Hog Daddy Dog took down the 40K MLB Mini Max. Congrats to all you guys. Download the avatar, tweet your wins at Awesemo HOF. We'll throw you up here and get your free month. All right, Matt, ready to build a lineup?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. What are we doing, DraftKings or FanDuel?
Let's go DK. And
all right.
So first question. Yes, are we starting with Lamar at captain? We're talking large field tournament here.
Oh, we're talking large field tournament. Yeah, still Lamar.
Okay, we'll start with Lamar at captain. Jordan, are we pulling this up? Yeah, I figured he knew. Jordan Klein. This is like his 19th show today. Show him some love in chat. The guy gets up at 5 a.m. on the West Coast. 5 a.m. on the West Coast to produce Awesemo shows, man. I mean, come on, dedication. Talk
about beasts.
I know. All right, so I'll go next, and you know what? I'll keep it very simple. We're going to try to see what we can do with the Waller build in here as well. So Lamar, and then I'm going Waller as our first flex.
Okay, I love it. All right, so I think if we're building for a large field tournament, it feels scary, but I think we might want to avoid Derek Carr unless you pick him. Maybe we want to get off that. But I'm going to go ahead and pick a player, Marquise Brown. We haven't talked about him nearly as much as we did a season ago. He had the hamstring injury, and yes, we know that there's downside to picking both Lamar Jackson and a pass catcher, but I feel like Marquise Brown at 7,600 has enough upside in a tournament where we can feel good about a decent floor, but it's really about that ceiling. Let's go, Marquise Brown.
I dig it. One of my lines that I say is uncertainty breeds opportunity. And I think the backfield today in Baltimore could be that. And I know you're probably not huge on this, but because they're so close in price, Tyson Williams and Latavius Murray, I think Williams is going to be a lot higher owned. And I know that he's been on the roster longer than Murray, but I'm just not convinced that he should project that much higher than Murray. And Murray knows how to slot into an offense. He's done it on like 100 teams. So let me throw Latavius Murray in here, Matt. That leaves us 3,400 per player, 2 players to go.
Okay. I will try to give us a little bit of space for that last
Give us some cushion.
All right. I like this player for their floor, but let's not pretend they couldn't catch 2 touchdowns, 2 short area touchdowns. And in terms of value at a player under 3K, I don't think you can do better today than Hunter Renfrow. Okay. I think you have some built-in target upside. And again, we're going to have some of these players, these salary concession players, don't feel great about it. Hunter Renfrow.
Okay, let's do it. Porter Rock, welcome to Team Awesemo. I did not miss you there. Appreciate it, dude. No stopping me. Try says, by the way, there's not just fellas listening and subscribe. My usage of fellas is gender neutral. It's just fellas. I'm serious. I'm man, woman, doesn't matter. Everybody's a fella. I've been saying that for years, man. And woman. What's up? Correct. Jackson, Waller, Brown, Murray, Renfrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then we've got 4K left. Oh, Matt. We're in a pickle. Tough. I mean, do we go Duvernay and leave 1,400 on the table? That's 2 pass catchers and a running back from Baltimore. Or do we go Justin Tucker? Like I don't know how deep this lineup's going to be. Anyway,
boy, I mean, Tucker does fit, and that would probably be very unique. But here's what I'll say. We're building for a large field tournament. So we're building for scenarios that are low probability in general.
Yeah.
But we have built a lineup where we kind of need to shoot the moon in terms of what happens with the Baltimore offense, where they're kicking a lot of field goals and they're scoring a lot of touchdowns through a few specific players. I think I'd probably take Tucker because he's the best projection available, but Duvernay also makes sense in a sort of Baltimore onslaught stack.
He kind of does. He does. But let me pose one more question to you. If we have 2 Vegas pass catchers without Derek Carr, does Dan Carlson not also fit in a build like that, where they rack up yardage but not touchdowns and stall out and have to kick field goals?
Okay. I think that sounds like a much higher probability than what we described on the other side. So I think Carlson might actually be the play. And that means, you probably have some wiggle room there. If you were starting from a core of this lineup, you could switch out Renfrow. You could switch out Marquise Brown. I think there's a lot of really cool pivots from here.
Right. All right. So that's what I mean by an exercise. We're just seeing what we have to work with here. And it's doable to make good lineups on this slate, even if you're throwing Lamar at captain. Simple as that.
I actually think one thing you can do in this last hour before the game is, if you're really feeling set on Lamar at captain, like I am, put him at captain and then find the lowest salary players that you feel comfortable with, and then build out your scenarios. What goes with those players from there?
Tell the story, man, for showdowns. You got to tell a story, We got Eric Lindquist coming up next. It says, Matt Gajeski as well, coming up with Eric Lindquist for the Live Before Lock show all the way up until kickoff tonight between the Ravens and the Raiders. But Matt, we close it out with our favorite prop or bet of the night. You first, sir. You do the honors on your first deeper dive for showdowns.
All right. He's going to have a huge game on the ground, so I'm going Lamar Jackson under 214 passing yards.
Okay. I can appreciate that. I'm not going Lamar over passing yards, but it's a bit of a hedge. I'm going Lamar Jackson over 286.5 passing plus rushing yards, because now it gives me an option to get there both ways. And I'm okay with that. I could see him going 300 total in this game for sure. Last thoughts, final thoughts, Matt, who covers, who wins, and total over under?
Baltimore wins. Ooh.
You see a
if
close
you want to
game
go to
here, don't you?
Awesemo.com and see my projection, but I think they end up winning at a score of 30-23.
30. Oh, you even gave me the score. I love it. Okay. So we go over by a couple points. They cover. They win.
But the Raiders kind of go within their projected range of outcomes.
Okay.
Right at their 50th percentile.
I'm going Baltimore 30, Raiders 27. I think we get a high scoring game. We go over. And this is essentially to say that I don't feel comfortable on either side as far as spread bets go. But 30-27, that would mean that I'm taking the Raiders. But I actually like the over a little bit more than any of that other stuff. So, Matt, this is fun, man.
This is going to be great. Great first show.
And you guys are fantastic as always. I mean, we're close to 2,000 live viewers on a Monday night. No place I'd rather be than right here on the Awesemo Deeper Dive. Check out PrizePicks.
Right.
Use the promo code Awesemo. Don't forget, tweet when you win tonight, when you crush and take something down. We want to hear about it at Awesemo HOF. Include Matt. Follow him at Draftaholic. Follow me at Laffy_D. Our handles are right there. Follow Awesemo at Awesemo_com. And stick around. Eric Lindquist, Matt Kajeski, taking you up to lock. Peace.
But it's probably Periwinkle.
I mean, he was definitely a Texas standout, though, right? Wasn't that where he went?
What are you talking about?
Devin Duvernay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's all I was saying.
Periwinkle's a color.
I know periwinkle is a color, and is it his favorite color? Who knows? Hopefully that wasn't hot mic.
It
probably was. Oh, cool. Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NFL Live Before Lock show presented by PrizePicks. Just talking our favorite colors and people's favorite colors before the show, because that's what normal men do on a Monday night here, getting ready for some NFL action. Of course, we're very, very excited. The Raiders hosting Baltimore, but who cares about that? We just want to worry about NFL DFS action, and I got the guy alongside us to do that. His name's Matt Kajeski. He covers all the college football stuff for us, NFL stuff for us. How was week one for you, Matt? And then what are you looking forward to tonight?
Week one was a little bit mixed. I actually did very, very poorly on the main slate, but made up with it on some of the short slates. And Showdown was really good last night. So a lot of success on Showdown on Thursday, a lot on Sunday night. Hopefully we can keep that going for 3 straight, because the main slate wasn't great.
Then I feel like I'm the opposite of everybody. I had a really good main slate. You know, it was the combination of Hopkins, Lockett, Corey Davis, my 3 highest owned wide receivers. Those were good times. Running back was a little rough, but everything else is pretty good about the main slate. And yeah, Showdown was a disaster, of course. So that's why we've got you here, because you need to talk me off of whatever Sony Michel Kool-Aid I was drinking yesterday. But now, of course, I'm just going to be jamming in Kenyon Drake. I don't even know. But as everybody's hanging out here, we've got over 1,500 of you watching right now. Hit the like button for us if you haven't already. That is very, very helpful. Hit that subscribe button. You should already be subscribed, and hit that notification bell because you want to know when all of this great free content is going live. We'll get to PrizePicks here a little bit later in the show. I've got a couple props that I've got identified. I guess the name of the game is going to be overs on rushing props everywhere, but we will get to that later. Let's just start at the top here with the quarterback position. We'll go position by position. It's kind of what we do here on the Live Before Lock show. Starting with quarterbacks, I mean, how do you not like Lamar Jackson and the captain? How do you not like Lamar Jackson as an outlook for this game, other than the fact that, everybody around him is torn an ankle or a knee or has body parts falling off? Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, sad times. But that just means more for Lamar Jackson, right?
It should mean a lot for Lamar Jackson. And he, based on any projections you look at, he very clearly projects as the top captain play. With that is going to come a lot of ownership. So you really have to weigh your captain options, the size of your tournament, and whether you want to make that call and play Lamar Jackson as your captain. Because in these mid-range builds, your median builds, he is very clearly going to project as the clear optimal captain. It just comes down to how big is your tournament and where do you start getting contrarian.
I'm just getting all the Sony Michel hate. I can't believe it. I mean, come on now. That was so yesterday. Also, I said Van Jefferson was my favorite cheap wide receiver, and in a quarter that paid off. Those were good times. Everything else was kind of a disaster about that slate. But on the other side, Derek Carr. We got to like Derek Carr here too. He's going to be slinging the ball around. He's the second highest projected player that we have here on the slate. I guess, overall, that makes a lot of sense. But prioritizing him is kind of difficult for me from a captain perspective. Obviously, it matters what else you're pairing him with. It's got to probably be 2, maybe 3 pass catchers for me on the other side. But what are you doing with Derek Carr on the slate?
I agree with you 100%. And I think he's actually pretty easy to captain in contrarian builds. I'll preface with that because I do think you really want to weigh whether or not you're playing Lamar Jackson in the captain slot. But when you're playing Derek Carr, he has pass catchers at all different price points. So you don't really run into any sort of log jams in your lineup whatsoever. You can really make it work with him. Jamming in Waller's pretty easy. A guy like Ruggs, who may be the number one, is very cheap. And even Renfro's like the punt play of the night. He should be heavily owned as just that salary relief guy. So I do think Carr, there are paths to him being the optimal quarterback. What it comes down to, I think, with a lot of the pocket passers, and we've talked about this on some previous showdowns, there's a really good chance in some of these large field GPPs that if the production is funneled through 1 or even 2 guys, just the way that these contests are scored, DraftKings specifically with the PPR and then touchdown, 6 points for the pass catchers, 4 for the quarterbacks, there's a really good chance in some of these contests that he has a pass catcher outscore him if he ends up in the captain slot. And I think that just lends some contrarian builds to maybe going receiver over Derek Carr, especially if he's going to come in with the second most ownership.
All right. Well, before we get to some of those receivers, let's talk running backs. This is a fun conversation. Everybody loves a sick, rumbling his tummy Josh Jacobs, who's going to be active here today. Kenyon Drake backing him up there. I don't really know whomever else I would try to take a shot with from the Vegas side, so I'm just probably not. There's that. And then from the Baltimore side, we've got all the question marks around them, but I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't know how you don't like Tyson Williams here in this spot, other than his price, which is definitely elevated on FanDuel. He's 1,200 or 12,000. That's a large number to be paying for him over there. But on DK, I don't find him too terribly cost prohibitive. What are you doing with running back on this slate?
I think Tyson's pretty clearly the top option. And it comes down to just a lack of other options, I think, that are super viable at their price. Like Jacobs is very expensive, and he's somebody we expect to be in a timeshare. With the Ravens backs, we're also expecting a timeshare to some degree, but they're more in that middling price range where it's kind of easier to get to them. And then a lot of Ravens beats seem to think that Tyson Williams will handle most of the work. Whether that's all of it remains to be seen, but you're kind of taking a shot on the unknown upside. Plus, Baltimore's favored in the game. They have a very strong rushing attack. They pace the league in rush attempts year over year, at least since Lamar Jackson's been there. So that's all positive in favor of the Ravens backs.
Yeah, and Awesemo's projections have Tyson Williams for 76 yards, nearly 77 here in this spot. Lamar Jackson, 66. I mean, Tyson Williams is looking like the guy that's getting more of the rushing work just from our projections, looking at that straightforward. Latavius Murray becomes the question mark for me. I've seen places where he's projected really well. I've seen spots where he's not. It's more of a guessing game. And if I'm going to play a guessing game, I'd rather do it with you than just about anybody else in the industry. What in the God's green earth am I doing with Latavius Murray on this slate?
Yeah, so I obviously am not plugged into the Ravens, but I have been reading a lot of the beats. Like Jeff Zrebiec is a fantastic beat for them. His speculation, which is probably going to be better than anybody's outside the Ravens program themselves, he believes that Tyson Williams will lead the backfield in carries, with Latavius Murray forming a change of pace. Unlike Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman, who were not promoted to the active roster, so do not roster them, Latavius Murray has been with the team for the same team for the last couple of years. He was at Saints camp up until last week when he was cut because of contractual issues. So he's game ready. It's just a matter of how many of the plays has he been able to absorb since he's been there. So I think they'll get him out there for change of pace situations where he clearly knows whatever play is going to be coming at him. But all that points to Tyson Williams still being the lead back in the offense.
All right. And that's the way that I feel too. If I had to give you a ballpark, looking at our projections right now for let's see, what is the exact number that we have on DraftKings for Latavius Murray? Never been a prolific pass catcher. I mean, they're never over 3 targets in a game. Looks like the last 2 years, 1.5 years since he had over 3 targets when he was with the Saints. Of course, you have Alvin Kamara there, so that's kind of maybe a bad example, but still not a guy known for his passing game role, even with the Vikings back in the day. He's at 16%. Do you want more or less than that?
I will still probably be a little bit over on that.
Okay. Well, that's fascinating because I feel like I was kind of gearing towards the opposite. Maybe that was just getting burned yesterday in a spot where I was like, hey, it's going to be a committee, and it's just not. So these are completely different examples. On the other side of it, though,
I just want to say I think it's okay to be over on both. Like I think you could take multiple shots with this backfield, and especially in your large field tournaments. I don't honestly like your really big tournaments. I don't hate playing them both.
Okay. So do you have builds right now that you're looking at where you're playing both and then Lamar Jackson? Is that a thing you can do?
Only in the largest fields, but yes, I do have some of that.
Okay. Not your preferred cash build here as we're starting out.
No,
just
not doing that in cash.
Oh, no. I mean, preseason, we did a lot of preseason shows. I think you can do some pretty egregious things. Well, that's what it looks like you're doing. Those egregious things are actually pretty normal things for the preseason. But of course, we are in week 1. These are actual showdown contests that actually matter. Looking forward to it. Anything else from the running back position that you want to touch on? Looking here in the chat, chat, everybody wants us to get to wide receiver. We have a lot to talk about there, but anything else to round out running back?
I don't think so. I think a lot of people thought maybe Le'Veon or Devontae Freeman would get the call up. They're not playing tonight. It's Trenton Cannon because of his special teams ability. So I'm sure if you're watching the show, you're pretty in the weeds with showdowns already, but just wanted to clarify that.
All righty. Well, today, if you haven't had a chance here at Awesemo Plus to check out any of our stuff with NFL, this is the last day that we are offering the DAK promotion. DAK, as in Dak Prescott. NFL Express Weekly Pass is just $1 when you use that promo code. It's the best way that you can check out all of our stuff that we have behind the paywall, the Stacks tool. We have all of this new stuff that gets added all the time, rankings. We have pro plays that are coming out where we're discussing our favorite plays. Those will be updated on Fridays in the afternoon, and you'll be able to see directly what Greg Ehrenberg, what yourself, what Steve Buzzard, what Alex Baker, what everybody is playing, and to be able to check out some of this stuff for the weekly pass. And you can see what it includes: player rankings, ownership rankings, data for the tiers, season-long fantasy football packages. But if you want to see what's behind the paywall now, use that promo code. It's just $1. You know, if you need me to send you $1, maybe I'll send you $1. Who knows? I'm feeling generous. Hit me up on Twitter. Also follow at Matt Kajewski with the underscore in the middle there. That would be very helpful as well. But otherwise, check out all of that stuff that we have over here on our premium site, DAK, DAK. Use that. And then also that's done at 8:59 p.m. out here on the West Coast, 11:59 p.m. on the East Coast. And if you're a new member looking for that Express pass, NFL Showdown LBL, all caps, one word. That's a mouthful. NFL Showdown LBL, as in live before lock at checkout, gets you 25% off that first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So if you want to upgrade that, get absolutely everything behind the paywall. That's how you do it. Check it out. Wide receiver. Here we go. This is, I think, where a lot of stuff is going to get made or broken, mainly broken, because of course we're talking showdown here. Marquise Brown, Brian Edwards, Henry Ruggs on the top end. The only 3 pulling more than 20% over on the old DraftKings.com. Which is your favorite of the grouping?
Can I go either team, or are we doing one specifically?
We can do, we're all encompassing. We have 50 minutes, so I got to kind of trim it so we can get to questions a little bit. So I'm clumping them together. You know what? Let's start with the Baltimore side, because again, you matter more. You're the one giving the analysis. Thank God for everybody involved. Wide receiver from the Baltimore side, Marquise Brown, go.
Yeah, I think Marquise Brown is the number one wide receiver. I almost want to talk about him in conjunction with the tight ends, just because Mark Andrews is such a focal point of the offense. Those are going to be the 1A, 1B, and it kind of fluctuates back and forth on a per game basis. What I will say about Marquise Brown, I think these pass catchers come with a lot of volatility. Baltimore passes at one of the lowest rates in the NFL. So Brown, he's generating similar, like nearly a 25% target share. But when you break it down to actually how many times they throw, sometimes that's even under like 6 targets per game. So it comes with a lot of volatility. Of course, Marquise Brown's the kind of player with his big ADOT, the skill set he has where he can generate those big plays. So he's great for tournaments. I think the best price adjusted play in this offense is still Marquise Brown for pass catchers, just because he comes in a little bit cheaper than Mark Andrews. And I'm expecting them to have very similar workloads. Sammy Watkins is slightly cheaper than Marquise Brown, and I think he'll be on the field almost every single play as the wide receiver too. But I also think he's third in line for targets.
Okay. And for me, it becomes really a question mark after you go past Marquise Brown, because man, does it get bleak from the Baltimore side. You've got Sammy Watkins, who was brought in kind of the de facto number 2. We saw him with Kansas City. Lamar Jackson, you would have referred to this as well. We have an NFL advanced stats page, and it gets updated. It's still through all of last year, but Baltimore, 55% game script adjusted rush percentage. And I think that's the largest. It is the largest here in the NFL. That's probably an underutilized page that we have over at Awesemo.com. If you do have the Awesemo Plus, you should be checking that out to kind of see what teams did in the past, compare it to what is happening per week. We'll update those as the weeks go on, but that's a tool I know Alex Baker refers to a lot. I want to refer to it too, so I sound smart. But Baltimore, there we go. Definitely a team that we're going to want to be utilizing a lot of their running backs, and then these pass catchers. Marquise Brown stands out for sure. Sammy Watkins down there. Can I interest you though in some Devin Duvernay, who we were talking about a little bit about before the show? Maybe his favorite color is periwinkle. We don't know, but I definitely think Devin Duvernay, a guy that can have some big playability. At least we saw some of that in college. Can I talk to you into a couple shares of him?
Yeah, in tournaments, you certainly can. If you're playing low risk contests, cash games, what it comes down to, he's only 200 cheaper than Hunter Renfrow. And Renfrow should play a larger role in the offense as a whole, at least what we're expecting heading into this game. Baltimore's a team that uses a lot of variable player personnel packages. You'll see them in 12 personnel a lot. Oftentimes that included Nick Boyle in the past. He's on injured reserve right now. So it's potentially going to be like an Eric Tomlinson. They have Josh Oliver on the roster, who's more of a receiving tight end. But that doesn't really mean too much for them individually. What it does do is take a third receiver off the field for Baltimore, which will be Devin Duvernay. And then you run the risk of Devin Duvernay potentially splitting with a guy like Tylan Wallace, who was a day 3 pick for them this year. James Prochet, I don't expect to get much run. When you're talking about tournaments and you have a direct leverage point off of a Hunter Renfrow, again, it's not likely that Devin Duvernay outscores him, but it's possible if he's going to be on the field.
All righty. Anything else from the Baltimore side?
I think we hit all the main pass catchers. I think Mark Andrews still firmly in play, even though he's a little bit more expensive than Marquise Brown. But I think you really want to isolate the top 2, maybe getting down to Sammy Watkins and then considering Duvernay in tournaments.
All right. And then I was on a show earlier today with Greg Ehrenberg. We were talking through the slate on a different site here, and he kind of was saying that he was very balanced as far as these 3 Raiders receivers. I think that it makes sense to. Do you have a preference out of all of these guys on the Raiders side? Specifically for me, I'm going to more Renfrow. I'm kind of flipping that ownership on its head. How are you handling these 3 wideouts for Oakland Las Vegas? First time I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I am not balanced. I'm a little bit overweight on Renfrow, and it comes down to price.
Yeah.
He's just the punt play that opens up everything in your lineups. And you could do a couple things with Las Vegas to get away from Renfrow in tournaments if you'd like. But as far as just looking at your punt plays, he projects as the best. He's going to be the main slot receiver for this Vegas team tonight. On the field, we would assume for most of the snaps. I think there is a slight risk. Maybe Willie Snead takes some away from him, but we've seen a connection with Renfrow and Derek Carr in the past. Very much expect him to be the preferred play among the cheap options. From there, I am second most exposed to Ruggs among the receivers because he is just even a little bit less expensive than Bryan Edwards, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Ruggs being the former number 1 overall draft pick for that team last year.
Yeah, and Edwards, God, I don't even know if he's going or not, but he had one good week. Yay, week 17, just in time to not play football again going forward. Good job, Mr. Edwards. Love those garbage time games, no question about it. Let's see. I don't really have anything else that I really want to be talking about. Zay Jones, it's a no from me, dog. Willie Snead, revenge game, no thank you. Anything else really to talk about whatsoever? Should we get to the main event that is tight end?
I like tight end. Let's do it.
I love tight end too. Before we get there, of course, our partner PrizePicks. We got to talk about them. Absolutely love playing over there. One of the coolest interfaces, super easy, super manageable. Pick 2, 3, or 4, or 5 players. I guess you have all of those options to go over or under their projected scores. Utilize that in all of these sports. NFL, NBA when that comes back, MLB, which is still in full swing, WNBA, NFL, esports. They have a ton of esports offerings as well. Mix and match them in order to put your entries together and win up to 10x your entry fee if you get the 5 right there. Just download the app in the App Store or on Google Play today. Make your first deposit using Awesemo as the promo code. Get up to $100 on that instant match deposit bonus. And then also, let's take a look at a couple of these numbers. I've got a couple that I'm interested in, and it's amazing because they're all rushing props. Lamar Jackson over on 69.5 rushing yards. How about that one?
I almost want to lean over because of the vacated carries, with all the backs being gone.
I'm right there with you. Tyson Williams over 62.5 rushing yards.
That's one I like more. I would like that more than Lamar's, with Lamar's being elevated.
Me too. I think that I like Tyson even a little bit more, but here's really where it gets interesting. I've got 2 more. I'm talking all rushing yards. Latavius Murray over 22.5 rushing yards.
I think the value is on all 3 overs. I don't think all 3 will hit.
Okay. And I think that that's why there is the flex play option available. You don't have to get all 3 right, but I find it almost impossible that you wouldn't get 2 of the 3 to 1.25x your money. And so I think that that's a really nice option on PrizePicks. And if you have to play somebody on the other side, Derek Carr over 6.5 rushing yards. What do you think about that ridiculous prop?
I am not touching that.
Okay. I wanted to at least throw it out there because it seemed like a fun one. We have them projected for 11. I just think it's fun to sweat a scramble. I mean, not that you need to be out here, and you're a sharp guy. I like to think of myself as a sharp guy when it's not Sunday Night Showdown, apparently. And I definitely think that having the sweat of one scramble of Derek Carr for an entire game is worth its weight in gold. Like, I think that could be a really fun deal. Put $5, put $10 together and utilize those props. But check out PrizePicks. Thank you so much to them for their sponsorship. Love playing over there, and I think you will too. Use the promo code Awesemo as well. Up to $100. That's how you build and sustain bankrolls. Definitely utilize it. All right. Tight end. This is what I've been waiting to talk about. Darren Waller. Once upon a time, people had questions and concerns about his touchdown rule. Well, no longer. 2020 had 9 touchdowns, 6.7 receptions per game. That was up a little bit from 5.6. He's basically the number 2 tight end in all of the NFL. I don't think there's any question from a receiving perspective for sure. PFF's 3rd graded tight end over the course of last season. How do we utilize him in the captain spot here on DraftKings, on FanDuel, considering he would be the guy that if he goes off could just break this slate?
For sure. When we were talking about Derek Carr captain lineups and how there's a decent chance a pass catcher could outscore him in the captain slot, it comes down to volume. And last year, the Ravens were super condensed in their target share. They were just peppering Waller with targets. Even if Waller doesn't have, like a Travis Kelce type game, he could end up with something like 10 receptions and outscore Derek Carr on PPR value alone. If he scores a touchdown, I think there's a strong likelihood that he does outscore Carr just with the narrow target distribution. And again, this could change. A lot of their receivers were banged up last year. Ruggs and Bryan Edwards both missed time. But again, you're losing Nelson Aguilar from this offense. The only viable pass catcher that we know for a fact is there is Darren Waller.
Agreed. And then Mark Andrews on the other side. Here's kind of my thinking about this. So you take J.K. Dobbins, you take Gus Edwards off the field, you put in Tyson Williams, and that becomes a completely different ball of wax in terms of what this offense looks like. I got to think they're still going to be looking at going on the ground, but if it helps anybody with the low ADOT you have for Lamar Jackson, he was on the back half or the back third of all qualifying quarterbacks last season, 19th. I got to think that Mark Andrews might be a big beneficiary going forward. He took a step back in 2020 from his 2019 production, but still over 700 yards for a tight end, 7 touchdowns in this spot. Yeah, he's a little bit expensive, but I'm prioritizing him on this slate. How are you dealing with Mark Andrews?
Yeah, what he struggled with at times were drops, and those are a stat that's not sticky year over year, which I think should be positive towards his overall positive regression. The only issue I have with him is price, and he is seeing essentially the same volume as Marquise Brown, but you have Brown at a cheaper price point. So I think Andrews, particularly in some tournament builds, is very intriguing. The issue with captaining a Ravens quarterback, or excuse me, a Ravens receiver, in my opinion, is it's going to be a little harder to outscore Lamar than it is Derek Carr as a pass catcher. Lamar has so many outs just on the ground, a rushing touchdown, his prop is set at nearly 70 yards. If Lamar has an adequate day passing and then that rushing upside on top of it, it's going to be harder for one of these pass catchers to outscore him in the captain slot. And that all that's considering Baltimore's already a low volume passing attack to begin with.
All right. And now, welcome to the portion of the program that I really don't want to take any ownership of because I don't really know what to say other than these are going to be ridiculous takes. But Foster Moreau, 3.4% ownership here on this cat. And I mean, he only appeared in 8 games. He's kind of a dude who gets some touchdown attention. He has 7 touchdowns through 2 seasons. Only played 7 games in 2019, started 7 games, appeared in 13. So in 29 games, that's 7 touchdowns. I don't know. That's a quarter of the games that he appears in that he catches a touchdown pass. I'm willing to get over 3%, which sounds ridiculous, but he's kind of my Sony Michel could give you a 0 and probably will, but I'm going to roster him for the sake of Showdown. What do you think about Foster Moreau and any kind of a red zone opportunity he might have?
I don't even necessarily think it has to be strictly red zone. So Foster Moreau had a fantastic year as a rookie, like you mentioned. And then for whatever reason, they stymied his growth by signing Jason Witten. And this is kind of a staple of the John Gruden era. He likes to sign his vets. And Jason Witten was like a net negative when he was on the field and took Foster Moreau off. With all that said, Las Vegas is still running 2 tight ends on the field at nearly a 40% clip. That's a ton of time on the field for Moreau. Again, he's in the same price range as Renfro, who should be on the field for like 80% of the snaps, maybe 75, 80, a lot more than Moreau. But like you mentioned, if Moreau's out there for even 40%, we'll play this conservatively, and he does see some targets and he has that red zone role, there's a chance he outscores Renfro in that price range, which makes him pretty viable in GPPs.
All right. Well, good. I made a recommendation that you didn't hate. So now I can blame you. Everybody can go at you on Twitter. I'm excited for that. From the Baltimore side here, I don't really see anything else that I want to go to. I know that they once upon a time had 1 million tight ends. I don't want to play Tomlinson. I don't want to play anybody else. I mean, that would be the only dude, I think. Do you have anybody else to throw out there from the tight end position as a deep, deep flyer?
Josh Oliver plays tight end, but it's just like we have no idea how they're going to use him. When they use 2 tight ends, they don't really use both as pass catchers. They like to use Nick Boyle a lot as a blocker. That's exactly what Eric Tomlinson does. He doesn't do it as well, but I think when they're in 12 personnel, it's going to be a lot of Eric Tomlinson in line, moving Mark Andrews into the slot as kind of your big slot receiver. So I don't think you need to get down to Josh Oliver. I will say, like, Josh Oliver is a receiving tight end. If he gets a couple snaps, there is some upside, but it's pretty weak.
I'll be going Foster Moreau for sure. I just had Lofty point out 1K likes. Is that what we're at or what we need to get to? I'm assuming that's what we need to get to. Is that a thumbs up? Can I get a thumbs up from producer Jordan hiding away? Yes. We're 259 likes away from 1,000. I think we need to get to 1,000. I will not eat chalk on the next stream. I can promise you that. That will not be a thing that happens. If you're new here, coming in from football, don't worry about what I just said. Just kind of completely gloss over it. But we definitely need that 1K likes. That would make us feel really, really special inside. So definitely smash that like button if you haven't already. We really appreciate you guys. We've got what? We've got 22 minutes here. We're leading up to lock. No, we've got less than that, 15 minutes. So we're locking here at 5:15. Quick little show for us here on this end. But that's kind of it from the tight end position. Let's get ourselves to some iffy kickers. Well, excuse me, Justin Tucker, best kicker in the NFL. But as far as the ownership goes, I always find it tough to figure out what to do with kickers on a slate like this. We're going to be playing a lot of Lamar Jackson, obviously a kicker. If we're going to be looking at his rushing upside here, Justin Tucker, we're kind of hoping that can be a spot for him at 4K. Daniel Carlson, 3,600 on FanDuel. I think they're definitely in play. And I think kickers, I value a little bit more on FanDuel. They get the same type of scoring, but half point PPR. They can definitely outperform guys on the bottom end with a higher frequency. How do you feel about kickers in this spot?
I agree with that take 100%. I get more kickers in games that have lower totals. This one's sitting at 50, so I haven't gotten as much of them in my builds. With that said, they're players I'm not really trying to take out actively or force in. Sometimes I think they actually come in under owned compared to what the field plays. But overall in this game, I think you're trying to get to Tucker because the higher implied team total, and aside from his talent, which he, like you mentioned, he's a phenomenal kicker. He's rarely missing to begin with. But the total is really what does it for me with the minuscule difference in price.
Agreed. It's so hard for me to want to prioritize them in this spot. I just think that there could be some crazy upside that exists on FanDuel. I am getting to a lot more of them for sure. I think that's kind of the quick and easy abridged version of kickers. They kind of are indicative of what the total is. And so I really like your breakdown of that. And to round out the entire shebang before we get to 15 minutes of questions. Yes, I know Justin Tucker is the best kicker in the NFL. I'm very aware. I just don't want to play him today. Ravens and Raiders defense. Oh boy. So Ravens 4,600 on DK. That is tough. 16% ownership there. And they're projecting a 1.5 away from the Raiders. I'd rather play some Raiders at 3K just in the hopes of something happening. I don't know about 4,600 getting up to some Ravens defense here, but what are you doing with these defenses? Are you getting to them at all in this slate?
Similar situation to kickers, more interested in defenses in low scoring environments. And that is if we're playing things like low risk contests, cash. If you're playing the Millie Maker, big, huge fields, obviously you're playing for chaos to begin with. But like you said, I think there is a decent amount to like about the Raiders defense in the context of DFS. I don't think they're a great defense in real life. And I think they could run into some issues if Baltimore gets up in this game because they are just going to ride the run, which leads to a lot of it. I guess it leads to almost no turnover opportunities. You're just going to see a lot of low risk type plays and not a lot of opportunities for Las Vegas to generate turnovers. With that said, if the Raiders get up in this game early and they have to make Lamar Jackson throw, he's dealt with some accuracy issues in the past. So in kind of those volatile game scripts you're projecting, if you're playing large fields, that's where I like the Raiders. They have a pretty decent pass rush. I think their secondary is highly suspect. That's kind of my breakdown of them. Baltimore, I think, hurts from some of the injuries they've suffered. They're also really weak at pass rush now that they lost Judon. So Marcus Peters going down definitely doesn't help them.
All right. If you had to play one just blindly in one lineup, which one would you prioritize? Baltimore or Raiders defense?
I would play Baltimore based on their favorite in the game. I think they're going to have more opportunities against Derek Carr, who's a pure pocket passer, whereas Las Vegas, some of their opportunities are going to come against Lamar Jackson on the ground, limiting chances for turnovers. All
righty. We got 13 minutes to go here. We just kind of covered everything there. Well, Matt did. I just kind of talked a little bit here on the side. Once again, hit the like button. We're getting so close to that number. We're going to be able to take some questions. We have a lot of them. People are already throwing them in there. We got 1,500 people here. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get enough questions to last us over the next 12 minutes. Anything you want to know, if it's DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, anything that you might have a question on, Matt's going to have you covered here. First one that I saw right off the bat, Darren Waller birthday narrative. Do you care? Are you a birthday narrative guy?
No, I didn't know it was his birthday, but happy birthday to Darren Waller.
It's my birthday Sunday. I just want to throw that out there. So everybody has to be nice to me for at least one day. I'm working on my birthday. You're welcome, everybody. Or I'm sorry, depending on who you are. All right. We had question on Hunter Renfrow in the captain slot. I cannot do that on this slate.
I think you can in big tournaments. He has a clear role. Again, the preface is that big tournaments, any sort of low to mid-range contest, this is field size. You're not doing that.
Somebody said Sony Michel ? That's not going to get a reaction from me. That's not very nice whatsoever. All right. Anybody else that had something? Yeah, Foster Moreau. That's the tight end. If I'm playing one guy underneath $2,000, I feel like prioritizing them. If you have to play one other guy that isn't Foster Moreau under 2K, who is your favorite play on the board?
My favorite play under 2, that is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'm just saying, I'm going to throw you to the wolves because
Probably
somebody's going to plug this person in no matter what.
Probably Willie Snead.
Willie Snead. All right.
Like I do not say that with any conviction.
Okay, that's fair enough. Oh man, we have two things here. We got super chat. Stephen Bauman, tournament play. Waller, Renfro, Edwards, and Watkins. Okay, so those are all tournament plays for sure. I think everybody's a tournament play on a 1-game slate. But thoughts on Tyson Williams once again? If you could recap that for us.
Yeah, I think Tyson Williams has a lot of upside, and it's kind of like uncharted because we don't know what his role in the offense is going to be. We are expecting a timeshare, but to what degree, we don't know. So Tyson Williams, he comes in pretty under-owned, especially in the captain slot. Based on our projections, he's lower than guys like Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown. We already talked a lot about how we think Baltimore is going to take a run-first approach as they have in the past. He's below a person like Josh Jacobs, who's extremely game script sensitive, but he's on the other side of game script where he could be phased out because Las Vegas is projected to trail. So I think you can still play Tyson Williams. And I'm honestly a little surprised he's not higher owned, but I think some of that comes down to name recognition and people just don't know who this guy is.
Oh man, we have a $2 super chat from Jordan Klein. And I don't know what's about to be said, but again, I don't even know what this is. You have a lot of explaining to do is all I know. How many likes for the Matt Gajewski challenge? First of all, what is the Matt Gajewski challenge? He said, thank you at the back end of that too. I should throw that in, read the whole super chat, but what is the Matt Gajewski challenge and how many likes for it?
Once upon a time on Christmas Eve last year, we did an Awesemo stream with 10, maybe 12 people on it. We were all having some cocktails, talking just nonsense. And I said in the chat, I would shotgun a 4 Loco if we got to a certain number of likes. That's the Matt Gajewski challenge.
It was the night before Christmas when you could think no more because you had a Loco. Of that, there were 4. How about that?
It was 10 a.m.
I was going to say that was for Jordan Klein. That was improv. If you want to know why they pay me the kind of bucks here at Awesemo.com, that is why. Absolutely crushing the game. Leslie Mizik out there saying that you wouldn't want me to not feel special. I would say I definitely don't want to feel special. All right. Let's kind of 1% Le'Veon Bell. I'm going to say don't do it. How many likes? How many likes for the Matt Gajewski challenge is what he just
I can't do it because I don't have one. I don't have one on hand.
All right. I'll do the Matt Gajewski challenge if we get over 1,050 likes. 1,050 likes. I will chug a 4 Loco on stream.
I will do it with him, but we have to plan it ahead of time.
Okay. This is a thing that we can do. Man, I am just here to sell bits. That is literally my livelihood at this point. What a joker I am. It's fine. Let's ride. You and me. 1,050 likes. Everybody smash it and 4 Locos. We'll do it at the front end of a stream. So we have to do an entire stream while, in the ramifications of such things. So run it up. Oh God, I can't believe, I don't know what that's going to do to me, but I don't want to do it. Duvernay, question mark.
I like Duvernay in tournaments. I think he's a weaker play overall than Renfro. I think Duvernay is a little stronger than Foster Moreau. That's how I would rank them for low risk contests. But I think they're all viable in tournaments. I think the highest owned player in that range will be Renfro. So if you're looking for pivots, I think Duvernay is solid. But again, that's with the caveat that Duvernay probably doesn't do as well most of the time.
Lofty in the chat said Jordan crushed a bottle of Grey Goose without any challenge. Well, there's that too. We all have our standards and you have none. Good job, Jordan.
Did do that.
Jordan Klein. Now, whatever. A 1.5K at least. No, we just get to 1,050. I just wanted to throw 50 on top of 1,000. So if we can get to that, and you know what, I'll give it an hour after lock to get to that number. So I'm just saying, suck it up. Okay. No excuses. Play like a champion.
Dude, I did already. I did it last year.
I just quoted a movie and I forgot you've never watched a movie in your life. Zay Jones, question mark.
Zay Jones is super, super risky. I think at best he's wide receiver 5 on that team. I think he's behind Willie Snead.
All right. Let's see. I think that's all I see right now here for questions. We got 7 minutes. Ooh, this is a good one from the premium Slack here. For MME, does Alex's 15-point rule for separation between your top and bottom projected lineup still apply to NFL and not just NBA? I'm going to say probably not. I would double check with him, but what do you think about that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so he's just talking about the raw projection of the lineup as a whole, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yes, so the thing I am most concerned with is duplication.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I am not leaving like $20,000 on the table. So I haven't run the numbers. I'm not sure if 15 points is the correct number, but the concept I think is sound.
Okay. I think that was a great question. Well done. Well played, sir.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. I think that those are the kind of things that I love to hear and answer, because I mean, that's how you can teach somebody to fish rather than just say, oh, you should play Sony Michel or whomever else. God forbid. Let's see.
Well, you know, like for these large field tournaments, you're always like large field, like Millie Maker, things with like 100K entries. You're trying to balance projections with ownership and not having duplicated lineups, just destroying your EV. So it's always a balance.
I just got to more Justin Tucker than what I thought I did. There's 6 minutes left, and I just wanted to throw that out there in the event that I win something. I would feel really bad to have somebody go look at my lineups and see that I won the $3 and the 15. I have 22%.
Okay, I have more than that.
Okay. So, I mean, I just thought that because earlier I was getting to less than that, and now I'm getting to way more as I'm finishing out my lineups. You should all be finishing out your lineups too. We got 5 minutes. It's the final countdown. I'm not going to sing Murray ? We like Latavius Murray, I think, more than the average DFS website today, correct?
I think he's good leverage, but I also think Tyson Williams is under-owned to begin with.
All righty. More targets, Ruggs or Watkins? That's a good question.
Ruggs.
I think it's Ruggs too, but I mean, for me, I think there's also ownership that we have to take into consideration. And right now, Watkins coming in underneath 20%. And well, actually, no, they're about the exact same amount of ownership and 5,200 away. Yeah, I think I would definitely want more Ruggs here as well. Are you guys running any 5-1 stacks with Lamar as the only Baltimore Raven? I do. I was going through, I have 80 lineups here, and I have one where he's literally the captain, and it's all 5 players. It's Carr with 3 pass catchers and a kicker, all from the Oakland side. How about you?
Yeah, I do. Not much, but yes, they're there.
Yeah, I have one lineup, and it's literally because I found that curious that it ended up crunching out that way. So to answer your question quickly, yes, there are 5 ones where I have the one being Lamar. I don't completely hate it. We've seen that come to fruition. I know there was a slate last year. James Robinson was the captain who ended up being optimal, and it was 5 players of whatever team that was that they were playing against. Stuff like that does happen. It's very rare, but you got to pick and choose your spots. Don't get too crazy. 4-2 dog stacks. Yeah, there's no problem going to a 4-2 dog stack.
I agree. And to your point on the solo captain from one team, I think you just need like some really weird stuff to happen. With James Robinson, I can't remember the slate, but I imagine he was catching a lot of like little dump offs when they're playing from behind.
All right. Somebody just asked, is David Moore playing? I don't think so. Is David Moore playing?
He's not on that team.
That's what I thought. I mean, he signed with the practice squad, I think, didn't he?
Yes. I don't think you're going to see him.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to see David Moore either. So to answer your question,
you're like you said, he's not with the active roster.
Yeah. So I don't probably want to play guys that aren't on the active roster. It seems tough. But if you can win with that, congratulations. You done something right. Let's see. Anything else? I'm going Renfro and Cash. I think you do have to play a little bit of Renfro and Cash.
I'm playing Renfro and Cash.
Okay. Let's finish this out here. I'll have to teach you how to say my last name. I don't think
I have him in Cash on FanDuel though. Let me check.
All right. I mean, I think it would work. I don't think it would be a huge problem.
I lied. He's in there.
You are a liar. You are lies. Is my connection actually bad? My connection's not bad. It is bad? That's pathetic. I'm literally have 100 bars. That's great. Alec Ingold ?
Oh, my dude. Wisconsin fullbacks. People forget he scored the first touchdown in Las Vegas history.
Alec Ingold did?
Yeah.
So are we playing some Alec Ingold because you're a sicko?
I have 0.
Oh,
he's from a town close to where I grew up though, but it's all just hometown love. Alec Ingold should not be in lineups tonight.
Just put him alongside David Moore for sure.
He would need crazy outlier performance to hit optimal.
Okay. Finishing it out here, Renfro or Williams?
Renfro.
Okay. Renfro for sure. I'm going Renfro and Cash. That's a great answer there from them. Watkins would be upset. I don't think there's really anything else. We've got 2 minutes to go. Any final thoughts from you that everybody needs to know for the 2 minutes that they have before they get their lineups in?
I think the most important factor in large field tournaments tonight is what you do with Lamar at captain. If you play him at captain, especially in things like the Millie, a lot of those lineups are going to be duped. How are you going to be different so you don't just destroy your expected value on those lineups? I think is the main question. I am not playing a ton of Lamar in large field. That's how I am approaching it.
I'm playing Foster Moreau in egregious amount is how I'm handling it.
That'll work too.
Do as I say, not as I do. Don't play him, but I'm going to. Let's see. We've got 1 minute to go. Do you have all your lineups in?
They're good.
They're good. Mine are not. Let me finish out here. Oh man, we're going to have a live sweat here. I literally have 1, 2. There we go.
I'll answer some questions. I saw some.
Answer a question.
From Greg, Prochet, Wallace, or Oliver. I think Tylan Wallace sees the field more than any of those other receivers. I think they're all pretty thin, but I would go with Tylan Wallace as their day 3 draft pick last year. How much Watkins captains? I actually do not have any Watkins captains outside of large field. And even there, he's very low owned for me. I don't think we're seeing anything else in the chat. Did you guys 150 max? I did not. You may have. I heard you.
I didn't today. No, I played 80 lineups. Yeah. 80 total lineups. I got them all in too. That's exciting. 84 to be exact.
So
but
Jackson,
either way, go ahead.
A ruthless baller. So Jackson is bad for captain. Not necessarily. In large field tournaments like the Millie Maker, I think you just need to be very cognizant of your lineups if they have Jackson at captain. He is the best projection at captain, but how are you going to be different? In small field tournaments, no issues at all. Just play Jackson at captain, and it's locked. So hopefully you did.
I got it all in. I have 97% Lamar Jackson and captain. Welcome to the day that we have going here. I have one lineup without him. That was good times. Any final words for the people, Matt Kajeski?
Appreciate you all for sticking with us. Thank you. 900 likes is still very good. We didn't get to your 1,050 you set out for, but I'm actually okay with that, and so is my liver.
I was going to say, so is probably my job security. But either way, Matt Kajeski, absolutely enjoyed it so much. Loved hanging out with you, per usual. Best of luck, everybody, tonight. Go watch some football. Go enjoy it. He's Matt. He's awesome. I'm Eric. I'm okay. We'll see you later.